All right, I'm picking up. This is, I guess, technically part 5 or chapter 5, part 2. My phone died earlier today when I was recording, and I try to review, my videos before I upload them, and I recognized that there was at least one thought that I didn't finish. Sometimes when I go into conversation and I'm following a thought, it's like these thoughts are little branches and they split off and they can run. Like you run out the branch and sometimes it splits off into a new thought, and sometimes I don't come back and do a great job finishing my thoughts. It's actually a pretty tough topic for me to cover. I guess before I get started, let me just read from Psalms 46. Elohim is our refuge and strength, and very present help in trouble. A very present help in trouble. Sorry, I gotta put my glasses on. Wasn't expecting to read, and then I decided to read this. Pardon me. I'll start over. Elohim is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam, though the mountain quake at its swelling pride. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of Elohim, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. Elohim is in the midst of her, and she will not be moved. Elohim will help her when the morning dawns. The nations made an uproar, the kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice, the earth melted. Yahuwah Savoth, Yahuwah of hosts is with us, and the Elohim of Yaakov is our stronghold. Come, behold the works of Yahuwah, who has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes war to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow, and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots with fire. Cease striving and know that I am Elohim. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Yahuwah Savoth is with us. The Elohim of Yaakov is our stronghold. So I called this chapter In Darkness because I was talking about how my search for truth led me way off course, so to speak, way into a place of darkness. And when I reflect on my life and I reflect on the darkness and the things that have touched my life, it's pretty difficult to even comprehend at times. Even tonight I was just reflecting on some of the things, and I just, it's like literally the high school that I went to was called The Village of the Damned, and there was a mini-series that was done on it by the Discovery Channel, and it was called The Village of the Damned. That was the name of the mini-series. And it was about the the extensive amount of just bizarre murder that happened during the 4 years that I was in high school there. And I don't really want to get into the details of all that right now. It's, I think that part of what I'm sharing is in an effort to share my testimony, give him glory, but it's also a way of organizing my thoughts. I felt for quite a while that I should really write, and I feel like there's several different things that I'd like to write about, but I think some of the details are better left to be written than to necessarily be talked about on YouTube. But today I did something that was really difficult. I watched a series of videos that my ex recorded of me back in 2017 after I had come back from this trip in California. Actually, it was around this very same time. It was literally the same time. Wow, what a coincidence. Not a coincidence, I don't think, but I was watching these videos, and honestly, they're difficult. They're difficult for me to watch. They were my ex recording me at 2:00 in the morning, and it's really hard to know, what was really going on with me. I wasn't on any drugs. I wasn't drinking. I can remember the intensity, and I can remember my body feeling like it was vibrating on such a high level, like it was vibrating. I don't want to say like a high level, but it was vibrating so intensely that I felt like the energy was so intense. And I recognized that there was intuitively like a need for me to drink water with a little salt in it. And I as a battery, I felt as like a biomagnetic battery. I would feel like drained. And as I say that, what comes to my mind is that demonic energy, it's often said that demonic energy feeds off of our emotional state or our emotional state or our whatever place that we're in. I was so hungry for truth that I was reckless. I was so hungry for knowing that I was careless. And I played with fire. And I believe that I'm very fortunate to seemingly, at least at this point, have survived that, although I don't know that I've really survived it, so to speak. I mean, who can say where life is taking us? But in terms of my heart and my mind and my soul, I'm definitely at a different place today. HalaluYaH. I really believed that I was doing something good when I was involved in yoga, and yoga means union. Well, union with what? There was a movie or a series on Netflix. What was it called? Gosh, I can't remember what it's called, but they used to do these movements and all this stuff to initiate some kind of, you know, manipulation of time or space. You know, what was it called? The something A. Oh, man, I wish I could remember what it's called. There was 2 series of it, and it was out there. Um, these kids were kidnapped, and this guy was basically was doing these experiments on them, and they learned, they were learning these movements. And the reason why I say that is that, right now in Switzerland, with this whole CERN thing, they're literally invoking, dance rituals and mixing science and spirituality. And when we look at what's happening, for example, in Hollywood and across the pop culture, the pervasiveness of satanic influence in the culture is incredible. As someone who has had perspective of, let's just say the last 30 years, from being of the age of accountability, 20 years old, according to Torah, that's 31 years of perspective that I have to see the change that's been happening in our world, in our society, specifically in America. And it's a shockingly different environment on all levels. What is accepted as normal, what is accepted in public, it's difficult for me to talk about because I never expected my life to be touched by some of these things. And when I watch these videos of this, let's just call it an episode that I had in California, or actually it was not in California, it was when I was back in New Jersey, but I did have one in California that really freaked out one of my friends. And it was like I would just call it like a quasi channeling / he thought I was having a psychic break. And I mean, when I watched this video today, it was very difficult for me to sit there and watch it. It was very difficult to see myself in that state. And to remember thinking during that time that I really believed that I was enlightened, that I had gone through and was going through a process of enlightenment. And long story short, when I was on this trip in California, the first few days I spent by myself. I spent some time with a friend, then I was out camping, and I just wanted to get in nature. I was really desperate to connect with the Almighty. I was desperate to connect with the source, and I just felt pulled to go into nature. And about 4 days into the trip, I was joined by my partner at the time, and she, my woman, so to speak, and she came out, and we were camping together. And I'm a typically very friendly guy. I like to connect with people, and we were on the beach, and there was a woman and a group of people that were over on the beach, and they were she was quite boisterous and making, kind of a scene. And they were somebody, I think, had brought in some urchins, and I think they were eating the urchins like sushi. Anyway, I said something over to her or to them, and she ended up coming over. And it was like immediately weird, because we were actually sitting in a circle of stones on the beach that someone had made. And when she came over, I remember her specifically stopping at that circle and not, I couldn't tell if she didn't want to come into the circle or couldn't come into the circle, but ultimately I can't even remember exactly how it happened. But there was like a clear issue or hesitation, pause, whatever it was. I didn't really understand it, but with her coming into the circle with us. And all I remember, really, the first thing about her saying, I don't even remember what we started talking about, but it went into spiritual right away. And she made this statement, and I'll use her language. She said, God doesn't make any mistakes. He made you perfect, and you have to separate the falsehood from the truth. And it was those three things, I believe, that she said. And it was like, okay, I know he doesn't make any mistakes. I never considered that he made me perfectly. And I did believe that we had to separate the falsehood from the truth. So she immediately kind of got these hooks in me. She was speaking my language. I was looking for truth, hungry for discourse, hungry for interaction, hungry for fellowship. And I felt connected. And so we talked for a little while, and I invited her to come back to the campsite and have dinner with us that night. And so she agreed. She accepted. Well, I think whatever time we had dinner, she was a little late, and I remember wondering, thinking about, if she was going to show up or not. And then boom, all of a sudden she just kind of appeared, and didn't see her coming. And she just walked up, and she had this grocery bag with stuff with her. And she walked up, and there she was. We started to talk and have dinner. And there were actually 2 nights that she had dinner. The second night, there was another guy that was there also, and they were kind of like, it felt like there was kind of an ego sparring, and who was more intellectual. There was discussions of quantum science, and the guy that was there like literally said that there's no one that knows quantum science like he does. And it was very interesting. But I was so caught up in the discourse and connection, and was so hungry, and just was thirsty just for knowledge, for understanding, for wisdom. But my ex had a very, very strong reaction to this woman, to the point where she was afraid. She was afraid of her, and was, I would say, not just afraid, was petrified. And I don't mean to to be uncouth, but she was so afraid of this woman that she literally had skid marks in her pants. And at one point she said that she got up from the table, and that she was watching her over the fire that we had made, and she was talking to herself over the fire. And she told me, my ex told me, that she heard, or saw this woman speaking about how she was going to keep me in California and whatnot. And I was completely dismissive of it, and just thought my ex was being overreactive. And she ultimately went to bed. And I get a little foggy on which night it was, but one of those nights, I think maybe it was the second or third night, or the first, it was either the first or the third night that we had um, shared some food with her. And I was up talking with her until like 4:30 in the morning. And I try to be a gentleman. She was supposed to be staying in the same campground and had, shared that she'd been staying there for most of her life, that her family used to vacation there, and her father was supposed to be a Korean minister, and her grandfather was a Korean poet, and so I offered to give her a ride to the other side of the campground. She was supposed to be staying where it was the, no emissions access. So you had to either be hiking or riding a bike, to stay in that part of the campground. So I'd take her over to the campground and pull up. It's all dark. And she says, I want to show you, my campsite. So I said, okay, and get out of the car. And she kind of reaches back and grabs me by the hand, and she's pulling me through, this unlit, dark path. Nobody's around. And literally, for a moment, it felt like Wicker Man. I literally felt like, where is she taking me? Because it just felt off. And it just, whatever sense or radar that I had, it was something was going off that, it just didn't feel right. We get back to the spot that she says is her campsite, and I look around, there's nothing there. No tent, no gear. And I'm just like, my brain is trying to put these pieces of the puzzle together, and I kind of I think I said something to her like, you can be honest with me, like I was inferring, I'm thinking, are you homeless? And she's just said, I asked her where her stuff was before that, before this happened. I said, oh, where's your stuff? And she's like, I just sleep on the table. I love to sleep under the stars. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And at one point, she's standing directly to my right. And, she's Asian. She's an older woman, probably at that point, I don't know, mid-50s, hard to say, maybe 60s. And I remember she was wearing like a short, like little summer skirt. And she just looked at me with like a very, what I felt was like a very sensual kind of look. And I had only pure intentions. I literally was only looking for spiritual connection and discourse. I was not, there. I loved my woman. I loved her. I literally was faithful to her. Did not stray from our relationship, and she just looked at me with this look, and it really made me feel uncomfortable. And then she reached over with her left hand and touched my arm. And when she did that, it felt like a whole, like all the visual image I have is literally like Star Wars, where when they're shooting the battle, like one of the ships is shooting a laser and it hits the force field, and you see like this, and that's literally felt like she had hit, and I felt like this electricity just go up and go over the whole side of my body. Well, there's so much more to this story. I could do an entire, video, probably an hour to 2 hours just on this trip, especially the time that I spent with this woman. She ultimately ended up stealing my car and leaving me stranded at the Getty Ashram on PCH and Sunset. And long story shorter, when I got back to New Jersey and I was watching these, videos of me back in New Jersey, and basically what happened was I believed that we had an Alexa, and I believed that Alexa was an eavesdropping device, and so I was talking to the Alexa as if someone on the other side, whoever was eavesdropping, was hearing what I was saying, and I was just speaking to whatever I had received or whatever had been I thought was revealed to me, and whatever my enlightenment was. And one of the things that really shocked me, and I really do, it was one of the things that pulled me out of whatever delusion that I was in, because I heard myself say, that what Satan had told me, and how Satan had wanted the attention back at the ashram, and how that was, his way. He always wanted it to be all about him. And I literally was referring to this woman, but whenever I referred to this woman, I referred to them as Satan. So you can imagine why I'm reluctant to talk about this, because, people, this happened in 2017, but, this is the kind of stuff that people could, you never know how people will use information like this, especially people that want to destroy you. But part of the reason that I've determined to share this is because it's not about me, and my life is not about me. My life and the purpose of my life is for the glory of my Father, the glory of our King. He created me for a purpose, and that purpose is for His glory, and it's for my glory as well, but only in serving Him. And so in that sense, I'm not going to be afraid to talk about it. But it shocked me, because I had no recollection of saying that at the time. I was very aware, even as much as whatever I was saying was out there. But one of the things that I also shared was that that I might die, and actually die in California because of a nuclear attack, a nuclear strike. I had said in this episode that it was from China, and that it was the fire that would be unquenchable fire. And pretty alarming to watch a video and hear yourself speak and remember part of it, but not remember another aspect of it, because I had no recollection of saying that name or that title. It's not actually his name. It really means the adversary. It's the Hashatan, and it means the adversary, not actually his name. When I was trying to watch those videos today, it made me so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. And I think that maybe today I was really able to fully empathize with my ex in a way that I don't think that I was able to before, because I couldn't get past, some of the things that I felt were violations in our relationship from her. And so because I looked at her being wrong, and it's almost like I wrote her off to a degree, like whatever else happened, I knew that she had lied to me. I knew that certain things had happened, and ultimately she left me, and didn't want to pursue a lifestyle that was centered around honoring Torah, and not just Torah, but Him, making Him first. But I think that I was really able to empathize with, if I was that uncomfortable watching, these videos that she was recording, and I actually had asked her to record it. How much she must have been uncomfortable. And if I have a hard time processing it, even 7 years later, 6, 7 years later, what was it like for her then? And that caused me, some pain to feel that responsibility, and to not really know, for example, what my children's experience has been with me. Didn't expose them, they weren't exposed to that, but I'm sure that there were some things that during that time that did affect them. And it's like, I've never had the opportunity to hear from them. And one of the things that was shocking for me, for example, about my children, was that I had been in a relationship after my marriage with someone for 5 years. And one of the reasons that I stayed in this relationship as bad as it was because I actually thought my children really cared about her. And I didn't want my children to have more loss in their life. So I really tried to stick in there. And I thought that my children really cared about this person. But when we split up, they actually showed a different side of themselves, that they were actually almost like relieved. And that was really difficult for me because it just exposed that they hadn't felt comfortable enough to tell me how they really felt. And I have to take responsibility for that. I was their father. And so I'm talking about this because I didn't think something like this would ever happen to me. I didn't think that the little compromises in my life that I made and the things that I was dabbling in or the things that I was opening myself up to would ever have exposed me or led me into what I experienced during that time frame. And pardon me. And even there's definitely been some things that's happened since that were extreme. And I felt I was at a different place spiritually at the time. I think that there was still a lot of ignorance in my life, but I really believe that there was something about my real heart's desire to do what was right and for truth, that despite the darkness that I had been touched by or was involved with, I feel a deep sense that there was some level of protection that I had, despite the fact that I was touched in this darkness. I wasn't exposing myself to anything that I thought was evil. It was more like being deceived into thinking that what I was pursuing was good. I mean, this woman took me to the Agape Center in LA, and that was one of the weirdest spiritual experiences that I've had. And honestly, I made a scene when I was there. Not a bad scene, but that makes me uncomfortable. When I spoke, I was in such a place of love and gratitude and wanting connection with people and wanting connection with the Creator, and I was so genuine in what I was doing. But it's almost as if I was a sheep. And I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to imply that I was, pure and innocent, but, in a sense that a sheep can be led to slaughter without protesting, and it can, might be considered, even dumb. it's like I felt like I was this sheep thinking that I was in a spiritual environment, and it was like completely not what I thought. What almost comes to mind is if you're in a group of people, let's say you're a person, and you're in a room full of all these people at an event, right? And you think that they're all humans, but they turn out to be like from that show V, and they're all like reptilians underneath the disguise. That's literally what it almost feels like. Is like you realize you weren't even in a room with the people that you thought you were. And there were people there that were telling me that they were Michelangelo, reincarnated. I mean, it felt like there was all kinds of different demonic energy and confusion, and people that were lost and looking for the same thing that I was. And so there was, I thought I made these amazing connections and stuff. They all turned out to be really just flashes in the pan. What comes to my mind right now is a verse where he says, "My children die for lack of knowledge." And the counterfeit that I see in the world, that's so pervasive, that's in the church, that's in the media, that's in the mainstream, it's in spiritual circles, it's a counterfeit. And I could feel the energy of certain people, and I could feel that the energy intensified. There were times where I felt, almost like activated sexually. There were times I felt other parts of my body activated. And we are spiritual beings. And yet in modern society, it's like we're just taught that that's something that we keep on the private. That's not, really part of it's like our personal life. That's not really who we are or what we are. And yet we can't deny what we really are. It says we were made in the image of Elohim. And that's the spirit. After I came home from that trip, got home, I mean, I was absorbing Alan Watts. I was absorbing anything, people talking about psychedelics. What's his face? Sorry. I was dabbling and soaking up almost anything that I could get on spirituality, and I didn't trust the place that I had come from, the place that I was raised. I didn't trust that. I didn't have confidence in it. But something came back to me, and it was 2 verses in Proverbs that my father had shared. And 14:12, there's a way that seems right to a man, but leads to death. Lean not on your own understanding. 3:5-6, lean not on your own understanding, but all your ways acknowledge Yahuwah, and he will direct your path and make it straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear or respect Yahuwah, and it will be life to your bowels and your bones. Our immune system and where our blood is made. Life is in the blood. And I'm paraphrasing, but it took me hearing a woman talking about her experience and calling herself a shaman. And that's one thing that I had learned, is that real shamans don't go around advertising themselves as shaman. The real medicine people, the real indigenous people, They don't go around advertising themselves like that. And I was coming home from time with my daughter, and I was, again, just listening and absorbing. And I heard this woman talking about her account, as a shaman, and she said that her whole journey had begun at this Agape Center in LA, and I was just like, "What? That's just where I came from." And she started talking about these, reptilians that were visiting her and weird stuff, and then played an answering machine recording that was supposedly them leaving this message. And whatever I heard, it just made all the hair kind of stand up on my body, and I just had to turn it off. And when I turned it off, I just remember being afraid and realizing how far off I was, not on the path or even in the same forest that I thought I was in, and just realizing and having transparency into the delusion that I was in and under. And it was shocking, and it was frightening. And I called on him. I begged him. I lowered myself. I remember getting face down, lowering myself, crying out to him, telling him, I just want you. I want the truth. I haven't been able to find anyone to lead me or teach me. And I haven't been able to find, a man as a brother, as a teacher, as a mentor. And I just want you. I want the truth. Well, he says, ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be opened. Hallelujah. And I started to have a shift. And I talked a little bit about not knowing what to do, but I had a sense of being able to use reason to evaluate some of the things that I had been dabbling in and participating in, to recognize that they were not good, that they were not something that I would be proud of next to my child or my mother or someone, close to me. And I think that in responding to those things, recognizing and then responding to that, it's like steps, it says line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little bit, there a little bit. And that is definitely how I've seen my walk develop. Is what I was trying to do, this is literally what I was trying to do. I was trying to rip back what they call the veil and stick my head behind the curtain, so to speak, like the wizard at the Wizard of Oz, rip back that curtain and see what the heck was going on behind here. And I was desperate to connect into that realm, to have confirmation that there was a spiritual dimension, that it was accessible to us. I was desperate for that, and it was like he kept saying no. I mean, no matter how many mushrooms I took, no matter what the dosage was, I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't having visualizations. The only kind of visualization I was having was these internal, so to speak, visualizations or awarenesses, but nothing like what I was hoping. I wanted to see through the veil. I wanted, that's what I was chasing. And it was like he said, no, that's not for you. And that's why I feel, to a sense, he protected me from something. Like I was trying to open myself up, and it's like he protected me. He put a buffer around me. And my mom prayed for me since I was a child that he would put a hedge of protection around me, even before I was born. And so, hallelujah, what I'm testifying is I believe wholeheartedly that he did protect me because of what I was dabbling in and what I could have opened myself up to and what I did open myself up to. And this is, I don't even know, honestly, I literally am going to have to digest if I even upload this video, because there is something in me, as crazy as it sounds. I don't like to speak definitively, but it's as if I knew that I had been touched by the devil. And I am reluctant to say something like that because of I know how that can be used against the person. I might be literal to a fault, maybe even handicapped in that sense, but I'm not completely naive. And yet I have been very naive in my life. And there is something about the adversary presenting in the feminine. And I believe it has to do with antithesis, opposites. If man was made in the image of Yah and then woman was drawn out of man, it's almost like you're taking the ulterior form. Whereas Yah is him, male and female, and we were made in that image, him, Adam, male and female. But the feminine is a vessel. The male is the giver. In terms of, then we have a picture of the sun, which is typically masculine. Why? It's the giver. It gives, just like the man gives of himself, and the moon receives that light and reflects it. A woman receives the seed of life and takes it and reflects it, refracts it into a new life. Woman is a vessel. Her womb is like a portal of life. And so women, I believe, have a interesting function as a manifester, and I believe it's right in the language itself. I mean, the Hebrew language itself literally reveals Yah plus fire equals man plus woman. Meaning, if you take the literal word fire, which is a 2-letter word, Elaf Shin, Aish, and you take the Y from Yah and you add it to Aish to make it Aish. In modern Hebrew, they say ish. They handle the alaf as silent, which is counterintuitive to language itself. But they say ish. And then you take the hey from Yah and you add it to fire, Esha, and you have man and woman. And you literally have fire plus 10 equals man, and fire plus 5 equals woman. And 5 is half of 10. Which is, to me, a picture of woman being of man, but 5 plus 10 is also Yah. And so you have these profound aspects of the language that reveal these deep spiritual patterns, these spiritual symbols or pictures for us that are designed to help us understand the world of the 5 senses and the world of the 1 sense, the kingdom of heaven, the inner kingdom, and the kingdom of the world, the sensual kingdom, which is represented by the woman. 5 is the sensual, our 5 senses. 10 reduces to 1 internal, that's the kingdom of heaven, so to speak. It's such a beautiful picture, but I believe that the woman literally is important to a man because she will almost reverberate whatever he is doing. She will exponentially be a manifesting vehicle. So for me as a man with a woman absent in my life, I see this. I see that I have all this love and energy to give, but it's like I don't have a place to channel it. So in not having a place to channel it, it's almost like it just ekes out into space, and it's almost like lost in a sense. Well, not. We go through times of self-development and learning and refinement, and maybe there will be a woman in my life. Again, maybe there won't. Whatever his will for my life is at this point, I'm good with that. I used to think that finding a woman was the key to my happiness, and The key to my happiness is knowing that I'm honoring and pleasing my Father, my Creator, my Elohim, my Almighty, the Almighty. When we touch darkness or are touched by darkness, it's vacant of itself. Darkness itself is the absence of light. It's nothing unto itself but the absence of light. And so when you consider something that is vacant, this I think is where this concept of the void coming, that it just, you have this void, right? And then it's like a black hole and it just pulls the light into it and it's just gone. And this is how spiritual darkness works in our life. It's vampiric. It sucks. It drains us. And I believe whatever was going on in my life at that point, I was being drained. I was in some kind of a state where I was like as an engine, almost just full throttle. And all that energy was just being drained off of me, and then I would be depleted, and I would need to, as I would say it, recharge. I wish I could say I had a full comprehension of what I fully went through. But what I can attest to is that in simple terms, when we are dabbling in manipulating the natural order through spiritual channels, or let's even say like drug-induced channels, when we are trying to use those things to bypass the natural order or backdoor, so to speak, it's almost like a hacking, right? You're trying to backdoor the computer, you're trying to backdoor the program, you're trying to backdoor hack the matrix, and you want to see through the code. You want to see what's going on behind the veil. It's almost like it's almost like it's cheating. We're not supposed to, that's not part of our experience. And so when we do that, it's as if we are rebelling against the Creator, and we are stepping out of bounds, so to speak, and the rules of life. And during this time when I was trying so hard to see and get a glimpse of behind the veil, so to speak, there was this soft, kind of gentle whisper of something I had heard, that blessed are those who have seen and believed, but even more so that who have not seen and believed. And when that came to me, it's like, I already knew the truth of that saying, but it's like, does it really apply to me? Is that really, it's like there's this knowing, but there's also a not wanting to accept the knowing. That, yes, I recognize that you're talking specifically about me, that I need to have faith in you without seeing these miracles, without seeing a flame of fire come down from heaven, without putting my head behind the curtain, the veil. And I need to, with the gifts that you have given me, and with your word and with your spirit, I need to have faith and acknowledge the truth that is within me and without of me, that I can observe with the senses that you've given me and the tools that you've given me. And this is why it's so important for us, especially as men, to be in the Word, absorbing, eating that bread of life, drinking the waters of life, wisdom, consuming His Word, that it becomes part of us. That as we are digesting it, it's just like Mom said, what you are what you eat. So if we're watching these secular movies, if we're watching pornography, if we're absorbing these different things, all this violence, we're absorbing this, it's going to impact us as a vessel, we will reflect back into the world that which we contain. And this is why it's so important, just like what we put in our bodies for food, what we feed our mind, our heart, our soul. What are we feeding our soul? What are we feeding our mind? What are we feeding our heart? And when we try to cheat, when we try to hack the system, that's really about instant gratification. That's like saying, I don't want to trust you, I just want the answers. That's not a relationship. As a man, I know I don't want just a robot connected to me in terms of a personal relationship. I want someone that knows me, that recognizes me, that there's recognition, that there's appreciation, there's desire. Well, that's what he wants. He wants us to choose him because we can look around and see the beauty, because we can look around and see all this crap that's happening in churches, all this crap that's happening across these different religions, how all these different societies, all these different people are all still having the same problems. And yet, when you look closely at salt of the earth, humble, observant Yahudim that are kosher, if you look at their skin, they have clean skin. If you look at their families, they have highly functioning families. They have children that generally are happy. And when people look at that favor, there's a lot of jealousy in the world. And then on the other hand of that is the false image when these people are the quote unquote chosen, when we do have favor and yet we abuse it. And then this is when we get this hatred from the nation, so to speak, because it's like you're the big brother, you get a double portion, and you're supposed to lay your life down to serve the rest of the family. But instead of doing that, you're looking down at everybody else and you're saying, I'm the big brother and you need to kiss the ground that I walk on, and that you're all animals, you're all beasts that are here to serve me. And that is unfortunately, that is a prevalent attitude within a lot of the Orthodox circles. And it's iterated in the Talmud, but it's certainly not what you find in the Torah, where it says that there will be one law for the natural born, one law for the sojourner, one law. Anyway, I'm tired, and I don't know what more to say, but that we are in very interesting times. I don't know where my life is going. It's really hard to make sense of the circumstances that I'm dealing with, but I know that I'm in his hands. I know that we all are. And that's either going to be a good thing in terms of blessing, or it's going to be a bad thing in terms of condemnation and judgment. And it's mercy for humility and severity for pride. And there is no injustice in him. The four pillars of this creation are love, truth, justice, and righteousness. And he is not, those things are not just of him. It is what he is. He is love. He is just. He is righteous. He is the truth. And this is why we need, and why he uses an ambassador, an emissary, because he will not partake with that which is unclean. Because he is a holy and pure Creator, a holy and pure Father. And the Messiah came to tell the lost house of Israel to repent to turn and return to your Father's house. And he showed us how to do that in the image of the Father, or a physical image of the Father's Spirit. So when he said, I and the Father are one, people don't understand spiritual language. It's the same when it says that when a man and a woman become one, let no one separate them. And it uses that same word, echad, brother daleth, brother doorway. The fear or the reverence of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. And he also says that the fear or the reverence of Yahuwah is to hate lawlessness, to hate that which is in opposition to life itself. That is what evil is. Evil is what interferes, pollutes, and corrupts life. And if you look at the globalist agendas right now, if you look at what's happening with all this stuff around the world, they are directly attacking the image of Yah that we represent. They are attacking our sexuality. They are attacking our gender. They are attacking our physical bodies through poison and food, bad medicine. They are attacking our minds with programming, with false information, misinformation, and then they're upset and want to take and censor us to a higher degree because we're making it harder for them to control us. I saw my best friend in high school. Not when I say I saw, I wasn't there when it happened. Die from heroin. That was traumatic. My 6th grade teacher died because a young man crawled in his daughter's window and shot him point blank in the chest and killed him in front of his daughter, who was my sister's classmate. That's traumatic. There are other horrific murders and things that happen where I grew up in a small town that were horrific. Not every thought that comes to our mind is our own thought. And we need to test thoughts just like we need to test the spirit. When I've been, in the past when I've been attacked, it's like people say, well, what's the common denominator here? What's the common denominator here? It's you. You're the common denominator in all these stories. And I would say that in some senses, I do represent that black sheep, or that, the blemished animal that wasn't worthy of a sacrifice, which is why I'm so thankful and indebted for the promise of the Father, who says that if a man lives his life in lawlessness and turns from that lawlessness to righteousness, that all of his righteousness will be for nothing, for naught. It'll be forgotten because he chose and turned to righteousness. But if a man lives righteously all of his life and turns to lawlessness, all of his righteousness will be for nothing. And so, as far as I can speak, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for my children. I can't speak for anyone that was my woman. I can't speak for my mother, my father. All I can do is speak for myself. That's all we can do, is to work out our own salvation with him in fear and trembling. And if someone wants to ask from us, or if somebody's open to hear our experience or what we might have learned, It's a beautiful thing. I had a great conversation last night with a young man. He's 6 years younger than I am. Very similar situation in life in terms of being divorced, or women leaving us, or being separated from our children, wanting, having desire, having a deep connection with the Father, and a lot of spiritual imagery, and heavy implications in our lives. And when I got to speak to him and encourage him, I felt so alive from having purpose, because as an older brother, my purpose is to serve my brother, is to love my brother, is to serve the creation, because in doing that is service to my Father. And that's how a man needs to love his brother, is looking not directly linear to his brother, but up to the Father, through the Father's eyes, back to that other son, through, like almost in a triangulation. You're looking at him through his eyes as a father that loves, this is my child, not just like this man that is, potentially a competitor. But how do we love one another through our father's eyes, through a parent's eyes, and not our own as competitive siblings? And so I'll just leave off with there. And I just, it's been kind of a heavy conversation to talk about. It's definitely something I think that I need to write about. And part of that experience, I think, in writing will be cathartic. And I hope it will be hopeful. I hope it will be inspiring and give him glory, because I am so thankful that I am not the man that I used to be. And I pray that his refinement, that his mercy, that I will not be under a spirit of delusion, that I will be full of his word, that I will be full of his spirit, that he will forgive me for anything that I'm missing out of ignorance, and that he will lead me to all truth that is relevant to my overcoming and to our overcoming. And I pray this not only for myself, but to anybody who might be watching, and for those that are seeking him, seeking his way. And so I just want to end saying thank you, Father. Hallelujah. Shama Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad, Ehavat Etha, Yahuwah Eloheinu, B'kal Levavak, Uvakal Nefashak, Uvakal Medak. Hear Israel, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah is one. Love him, Yahuwah, with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. I will sing you a new song. 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 I will sing. I will sing, I will sing, oh my King, oh my King, oh my King, I will sing. I will sing, I will sing, to you I will sing, to you, oh my King, I will sing. Hallelujah. God bless and keep you.